Now, to be fair, an ETF that's been paying investors at least over the past several months around 48.5 cents consistently every single month is not bad whatsoever, especially when the ETF cost under $20 per share. But normally as investors, when we see this sort of income being paid out, especially consistently like this, you're probably wondering if or if not the ETF has decayed like crazy and historically has been trading straight down into the right. And a lot of times that does happen to be the case, but in this video we're going to go over a sort of risky but interesting ETF that I personally hold and have been buying consistently in my portfolio that has been paying me almost 50 cents per share per month, and also at least since inception has not decayed whatsoever. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about a 20 to 30% yielding ETF that, like I said, since inception offers a massive positive total return, well, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into it. Now, the ETF that we're talking about for this video is ZVOL or ZVOL, the Volatility Premium Plus ETF, and I've talked about this ETF maybe a few times before on my channel. Now, the ETF has an interesting strategy which I'm going to share with you in a second, but the distribution rate is around 20 or 30%, not to mention the distributions, at least so far since I've been buying it, have been consistently 48.5 cents every single month per share. Now, this ETF has a very interesting strategy. It says right here, the Volatility Premium Plus ETF, or ticker symbol ZVOL, seeks to provide a monthly income stream and alternative source of diversification while monetizing the premium in the VIX futures term structure. Now, it's a ZVOL aims to provide daily investment results that correspond to the daily performance of the S&P 500 VIX midterm futures inverse daily index before fees and expenses. So inverse the VIX, which basically means as long as the volatility index stays nice and low and calm, this ETF not only has the potential to offer a ton of income, but also can even grow over time. Now, this also means that by shorting the volatility index, basically, if the VIX spikes substantially, this ETF is set to lose some value. At least that's my full understanding. Now, for example, as of filming this video, ZVOL is down around 2 or 3%, and as of today, the VIX is up around 10.1%. Now, when I show you ZVOL's price over the past several months, it's going to somewhat correspond the opposite of what the VIX does. So if you personally think there's going to be massive volatility in the market, then ZVOL or any sort of instrument that's shorting the volatility index is probably not going to be your best investment. But for me specifically, although we have had a little bit more volatility over the past few months, I think overall throughout this year, the market might be sort of choppy, but I think volatility is going to stay relatively calm. Now, if I'm going to make a whole video on ZVOL and explain what this ETF is and how it works, I think it's also important that we all understand what the volatility index or the VIX is. Now, it says right here in Investopedia, the CBOE volatility index or the VIX, what does it measure in investing? Now, it simply says the VIX is a real-time index that represents the market's expectations for the relative strength of near-term price changes of the S&P 500 index. So the definition is the CBOE volatility index, also known as the fear index, measures expected market volatility using a portfolio of options on the S&P 500. So generally speaking, when volatility spikes, there's some issues in the market, or at least there's some concern. Now, also important, it says because it is derived from the prices of SPX index options with near-term expiration dates, it generates a 30-day forward projection of volatility. Volatility, or how fast price change, is often seen as a way to gauge the market sentiment, and in particular the degree of fear among market participants. And for that reason, I have been adding a few shares of ZVOL to my portfolio, just again because I personally believe that volatility is going to stay somewhat calm in 2025, but again, I could be completely wrong. Now, looking a little bit deeper into ZVOL, it has been trading since 4/19 of 2023, so there is a bit of historical data to go off of. The expense ratio is very expensive at 1.35%, but I promise you the total return has obviously offset this. Now, there's around 22.6 million in assets under management, so it's a relatively small fund. And again, I would consider this sort of an alternative investment. I personally never would feel comfortable investing a boatload of money in something like this, but it is sort of fun to have a few shares in my portfolio. And again, the income potential is massive. Now, speaking of the income potential, like I said, as of right now, filming this video, ZVOL is trading in the $19 range. So again, for a 48.5 cent payout for an ETF that costs around $19, and also, like I'll share with you here in a second, has not decayed since inception, is honestly pretty shocking. Now, is ZVOL going to continue to pay out 48.5 cents every single month throughout 2025 like it did in 2024? Well, of course, we don't know for certain. But the reality is that ever since I started buying this ETF, since basically halfway in 2020, I've not only earned a massive amount of income every single month from even the few shares that I have, but also I'm barely done on my position. Which brings me into the next portion of this video, ZVOL's actual price performance. Now, looking at this ETF on the max time frame, and again, it's been trading since about mid-2023, so we do have various market conditions that this ETF has now basically lived through. Now, in the max time frame, the ETF is up 28.13%. Now, in the last 1 year, this ETF has had a rough time, just like I shared with you, because because the VIX has been spiking, which means this ETF is not going to do great when the volatility is bubbling. But still, you have to give some respect where it's due, because it is very rare to see an ETF that offers around a 20 or 30% yield, pays out distributions consistently, and also on the max time frame is in the green. Now, if you believe what I believe, and again, I could be completely wrong, this is just what I'm betting on, but if you think volatility in 2025 is going to calm down a little bit, and we're going to get sort of a choppy sideways trading market, like I think names like ZVOL not only will continue to be able to pay out a massive amount of income every single month, but also will start trading more sideways and even up from here. Not to mention, if volatility substantially drops, names like ZVOL can also grow substantially in a relatively short amount of time. But either way, on the 1 year time frame, because it is down around 17 to 20% as far as price goes, this could potentially be a good buying opportunity. But again, what do I know? Now, before I share with you guys the total return so far when it comes to ZVOL, I lastly wanted to go through some different math calculations just to share with you how easy, potentially at least, it could be to earn a substantial amount of income from ZVOL. So if we went to buy 200 shares of ZVOL right now, let's say, for example, it's currently trading around $19 per share. That would cost around $3,800 or so. But what's crazy is that with 200 shares based off of the previous distributions that we've seen so far, with 200 shares, your income would already be at almost $100 per month. Now, the last thing I wanted to walk you guys through is exactly what the total return for ZVOL has been since inception. And like I said, whether or not you think this one is going to keep decaying like it has as a recent because of the VIX spikes, of course, that is up for discussion, debate, and interpretation. But at least so far since inception over the last 1.72 years, if an investor bought 10K worth of ZVOL and reinvested their dividends along the way, we're talking almost a 70% total return, or on average around 35.8% per year. Now, again, whether or not you like this strategy or whether or not you believe in it, the numbers are the numbers, and this ETF, as far as income potential alone, has paid out several dollars in the past several months. So is ZVOL, the volatility premium plus ETF, a buying opportunity where it sits as of right now? Well, because the volatility index basically ever since August of last year has been bubbling a lot more and spiking a little bit more, it is making ZVOL's price a lot lower than it was previous to this. Now, the main thing an investor that wants to buy or not buy ZVOL is going to have to think is volatility going to continue? Is it going to get worse, or is it going to get better? And because I personally think that in the next 12 or so months, it's going to be somewhat chill, I'm buying some shares of ZVOL here and there. But again, for me personally, in a very, very small fashion. A share here, a share there, nothing major compared to the rest of my portfolio. So now that we talked about ZVOL, the Volatility Premium Plus ETF, which is one of my favorite quote-unquote alternative ETFs that I currently have in my portfolio, and this is not only because I personally believe in shorting the VIX over the long term, but also because the income potential from this one is just too good to miss out on. Not to mention the total return for ZVOL so far has been shockingly good. I lastly, most importantly, want to hear from you guys down below. I first off want to know what you guys think of ZVOL, and if you think this is going to be a good investment, let's say over the next 12 or 24 months. And if not, what other alternative style ETFs are you interested in that you guys want me to look into? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.